Hey everybody, how's it going out there? Danny Hauger here reminding you of a few things. Friday, October 13th, come see Hope Sandoval and the Warm Inventions at the UC Berkeley Theater. We'll be there. Stop by and say hello if you're at the event. Should be a wonderful concert. I'm looking forward to reviewing the UC. I know it's a historic theater, and babies in the background are very excited about it. Today we're super lucky to be joined by Joe Pisapia from Guster and co-writer of Ben Folds and so many artists. So please join us for this wonderful interview. Also, don't forget, Swan Dive is in stores now, iTunes and Amazon. Check that album out, or on Spotify if you're looking to save some money like I always am. Don't forget you can follow me on Twitter at DHXMusic, and hope to see you soon. Leave us a comment at DannyHauger.com about this interview and who you'd like to see us get next. Well, that's about it, so join me after for a free song, but right now, here's Joe Pisapia. A happy and healthy welcome to you. Today's edition of the Hauger History... Oh, I'm used to doing history. Sorry for my students. A happy and healthy welcome to all of you into today's edition of Danny Hauger Podcast. I'm thrilled today to speak with one of the most influential musicians I've had in my life and have the opportunity to listen to. Joe Pisapia joins me, a singer-songwriter, producer, and performer who has worked with the esteemed likes of Ben Folds, Guster, and the Silver Seas, and is now launching a PledgeMusic Campaign, which I hope you will support at pledgemusic.com/project/Joe Pisapia. Joe, thank you so much for joining us today.
Danny, really great to be here.
It's a great thrill to talk to you. I've seen you in concert lots of times, mostly when you were with Guster, and it's a pleasure to hear your speaking voice and to meet you in this context. And in your announcement that came out earlier this week about your Pledge Music campaign, you mentioned a feeling of butterflies about the project. Tell me, where do you think that feeling comes from within us?
Well, it's one of those things with performance that never goes away. You never really get used to entering the stage. And in a lot of ways, I feel like what I'm excited most about the Pledge platform is that it is kind of a performance. Mm-hmm. It's sort of like, hey, I'm committing to keep current content coming. And it's sort of like a lot of that is going to be live performance videos that we're working on.
Yeah, that's awesome. Where did the idea come from for you to start this Pledge campaign, and where did that originate from?
Well, actually, my friend Seth Lozier, who I met vis-a-vis Guster, because he used to be our tour manager. Okay. He was the guy who convinced me to do it. He said, that's what you got to do. You got to do a Pledge campaign. I was like, really? And so the more I looked into it, and after talking with the guys at Pledge, and I just sort of really loved where they were coming from, and I'm really thankful he suggested it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really unique opportunity. We were talking a little bit about technology earlier, and it's amazing. Well, for me, for one sake, I mean, I'm a teacher full-time. I worked for the LA Angels for 5 years, so I always would see you guys when you come to Orange County and come down to LA. And if I had not lived in this time, I mean, for me to do music on the side, for me to do broadcasts on the side, for me to do sports with Stanford University, all these things were not a possibility 20 years ago. I'm just so grateful that we could even interact like this. In the time in which when I was growing up, we would never have a chance to speak to people who influenced us. You would just have to sit and wonder or wait till something major came out in TV and radio. And it's just really pleasant, I think, to have that interaction and encourage more creative production.
I'm with you. It's a brave new world. I mean, it could be braver if I figure out how to work my video. But it's like I wanted to tell the guys at Pledge, hey, you know what? When you talk with me, I'm your dad on the internet. That was another reason I was nervous about Pledge, because I'm like, man, I really got to... I have a few interns who are super sharp, and they make fun of the way my computer's set up and everything. For some reason, I could run the hell out of audio, but anything else, it's like, forget it.
Hey, we all have our specialties and our niches, and I was looking at yours, and there's so many creative projects you've been a part of when I went to your website, joepisapia.net, and looked at the albums that you've left a stamp on and co-written. Where did the musical gene for you start? When was it nourished, and how did you get where you are now musically?
Well, I think I owe a lot to my Aunt Marianne, who was she was the organist in her church, so she was kind of the music leader there, and so she always had instruments in her house. And my older cousin Kevin, her son, was like, he always had a couple guitars, and I remember when he got his first electric guitar, and we would just disappear for hours and just play with that thing, man. And then I think that's where I got the bug. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And my dad was in the drum and bugle corps before the army, but other than that, there was not much music going on in our house. My parents played the radio. They had a pretty good record collection. Mm-hmm. But, yeah.
That's cool. So with that influence, with that experience, I'm kind of thinking about if we had a paint mixer or a musical Mount Rushmore, so to speak, I think mine would have Soul Asylum, Jim Croce, Guster, Not a Surf, and the Gin Blossoms. And I want to know who's on yours.
Well, I gotta say, Danny, because I look back, if I think about like what really made me inspired when I was the same age, I was picking up guitar. It was like Ian Hunter, who was the singer of Mott the Hoople, and then Mott the Hoople. I learned about Mott the Hoople from Ian Hunter, and then that made me learn about David Bowie. And of course, our parents had a lot of the Beatles records, and much like a child's sort of dissonant, it's almost like there's a rift between the what do you call it, like your styles. I was like Kiss and the Beatles. I love Kiss and I love the Beatles.
Right.
And I probably love Kiss because the outlandish show stuff, for the top, and then the Beatles were like hit the musical nerve, you know?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's interesting, too, then how it evolves, because I have the same feeling. Like, I grew up appreciating Motown, but once I left the house, I just found Smokey Robinson on less and less. I totally love it, but... and then for me, I think I fell into the niche of... That's right when the whole pop disaster thing with Green Day and Blink-182, I'm showing my age now, but... And I love that, but you grow out of it at a certain point, and then you find the nuances of a Guster and Not a Surf just kind of take over that maturity factor. I feel like you're kind of growing up with the band, and especially going back and discovering old albums later. Going into your collection and listening to your songs, it's really neat to kind of feel like as you're growing up, your musical taste maybe gets a little bit sweeter, or you just start to become a little more specializing in what you're listening to.
I think you're right. It's like, and it works all ways, I'm sort of like, I have all these, I consider them like musical fetishes. Like I'm obsessed with bossa nova music, and then I sort of have like I have like country music fantasies, like twangy fantasies, like that I haven't really experienced yet in my own writing that I keep wanting to. You know what I mean? I'm like, because I've been playing pedal steel now for about 10 or 11 years. And it's just such a fascinating instrument. It makes me think about country textures and applying them into pop music, And even in Guster, like the Captain and all those, like we would play around with like the country shuffles and all that stuff. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. Well, that's what I thought you brought to that group so much, is the diversity and the ability to go into different directions. And I always enjoyed it. I always wondered. It was always great seeing a Guster show, and it still is. You're not sure what songs you're going to get, but also the arrangement. You were so giving in the way that, he's picking up the banjo. Here he goes with extra synthesizer track here. I always loved that. It's kind of a thrill for fans, and it's. I was always pleased that you did that and you brought that to the group. Let's go on to a similar track, and then we're going to move forward to the present here. Guster on Ice, one of my favorite DVDs of live performances. What goes into a production on a project like that? I see cameras everywhere, and I just wonder how much setup goes into a show that looks so seamless and easy, but I wonder what kind of is your involvement producing something like that?
Well, to be honest with you, compared to a lot of other people, I had it easy. Now, the people that are the real heroes of that show, one of the guys who I also met through Guster, who actually lives in Nashville now, became a manager, is Michael Corcoran, and his nickname was Pasty. That was his Guster rep name, and it stuck, Okay. So Pasty was a tour manager, plus he was an amazing lighting technician too. He learned on the job, right? But I could remember we camped out in Maine, obviously for that weekend. Mm-hmm. We got there a day early. And Pasty was in that hall setting up and designing that light show for like 12 hours or 13 hours the night before. We were bringing him food and stuff and coffee. And it was just so much heart went into that. And I was like, he got extra stuff and made it look really cool. And then Danny Clinch and those guys who were just masters of that craft, Yeah. Also, Mike Shipley, who mixed that audio, who passed away kind of at a young age. He did a great job with those mixes. He's a great studio engineer and mixer. But aside from talk about butterflies, getting up there and being like, okay, we got to make something happen here. This is forever,
Yeah.
And I remember that tour specifically because on that tour, I believe we had done the MTV2 album covers with the Violent Femmes. Mm-hmm. And we ended with Guster on Ice.
Wow.
And that tour was about 4 months long.
Yeah.
And man, that was it was a whirlwind. It was a whirlwind.
It sounds like a very special time. Thanks for sharing that story with us. So when I was at Cal State Fullerton running the radio station there, I played a lot of your music, a lot of Guster's music, and whenever my friend would tell a story about going out on the American River, which he seemed to do all the time, I don't know where he was having time for classwork, but then again, it was Cal State Fullerton. There's a nice diss to my alma mater. That's high school, though. Anyway, sorry. Played River Song a lot, and I just want to know kind of what inspires you to write. Where do these concepts come from, and do you find, I'll find if I step away from 3 or 4 days without playing, the songs kind of start pouring out when I come without much effort, when I come back to the instrument. Where does your inspiration come from for writing?
Well, it's funny you said that about when you walk away from the instrument, where you kind of detach from it, something happens.
Yeah.
The River Song, to be honest with you, this is so funny. I had just got my first computer rig, my first digital recording into the computer, and it was Cubase 5.1 or something like that. This is going back in like 1998,
okay,
99, something like that. And I didn't know how to use the machine, but I just read all the directions as much as I could. I was like, I'm going to write a song that's a throwaway, so I don't record any of my good ideas.
Okay.
And I wrote River Song in like 15 minutes because I was like, well, I just want something like really easy, like sounds like a John Denver song.
Okay.
And I wrote in 15 minutes and put it down. And that version of River Song, it was still so hard to beat. And it was so joyful. I just put all the tracks down and sung the first harmonies. They're all like, all out of tune and monthly. But it's got so much vibe on it.
Love it, yeah.
And so there is something about like all the way letting go and surprising yourself, right?
Well, totally.
Like not trying. I wasn't trying to write a great song. I was trying to write a throwaway song. And it turned out to be pretty good.
Absolutely. And it's fantastic. It's so warm. So let's move on from that philosophy, and I love that conversation as well. Tell us about your Pledge Music campaign. You've got some really amazing items and thank yous available. I pledged today, and it's my hopes that lots of artists and friends and followers here will support your music as well. What is it about the campaign that you're hoping for will really connect, so to speak?
All right, I'm glad you said that.
That was an accident.
First of all, thank you for your pledge.
Yeah.
It's above and beyond the follow-up. I appreciate that. One of the things I'm really excited about is the whole concept of connection. And what used to scare me in the past about, this sort of sequential updates and the consistency of updating, now I'm really excited about it. And part of that is I have a video series, which is called Connection of the Day. And in that series, I'm interviewing people that inspire me, people I work with in my music community. I have the Guster guys, our guests on this already. I've recorded them doing this thing. And basically all it is I'm going to say something I appreciate about that person. And then they say something they appreciate about me. And it's very spontaneous and vulnerable. And it's super, it has a lot of soul in it. And so I want to share that. I want to share my community with the pledgers. And then the other thing is we're putting together a lot of performance videos. So either it's me playing guitar solo. I've been doing this thing called the Pisapia Parlor Music Club in the studio. We did one last night. And my friend Kyle Ryan came, who plays with Casey Musgraves and produced her Christmas record. My friend Sam Smith, who plays with Ben Folds, played piano. Everybody's on different instruments. My friend K.S. Rhodes played organ. My brother played a drum brush on his pant leg and sang. And we do it all around one microphone. It's super special.
That's really neat. That sounds amazing. There's a lot for people to check out. PledgeMusic.com, search Joe Pisapia and check out the program. I wish you the most and utmost success. To all your fans, old and new, I think a lot of new people will discover it, and I hope that's one of the goals of the project too. If I can help with any production or remote recording, you let me know. Studio's ready for you anytime you want, Joe.
I love it, Danny. I appreciate your time.
All right, I love what you're doing with this Connection Pledge campaign. Wish you all the best, and thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
All right, thanks again. Have a great day. Thanks so much to Joe Pisapia for joining us. What a thrill to be able to talk to him, one of my musical influences and a big fan of what he's doing with his new Pledge campaign on Connection. I hope you'll go make a connection for him. And maybe for me, don't forget to follow me on Twitter at DHXMusic and DannyHauger.com. That whole community of musicians thing goes around. I hope it will come around. And Joe is wonderful to have spent that time with me. We'll be speaking with Hope Sandoval soon in advance of her show at the UC Berkeley Theater on October 13th. And don't forget that my album, Songs to Wake Up To and Swan Dive, are available on all digital music platforms and at DannyHauger.com. And you can download a free song a week from me on Danny Hauger Podcast on iTunes and YouTube. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you on the next edition.